Want to officially welcome everyone here for our short lunch hour webinar. And we just want to make sure we're really excited to present to you, as you see here, the future of home improvement, 5 trends reshaping 2025. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Well, we're a full quarter into 2025, and this year there's lions, there's tigers, and there's tariffs. Oh my. Well, if you're feeling like 2025 is already off to, a wild start, you're probably not alone. And that's why we're here to break down the trends we see that are shaping or even reshaping the home improvement industry throughout the rest of the year. Well, my name, of course, is Brian Gee. I am head of strategy here at Chicago-based strategy and creative firm Simon Myers. We specialize in the home improvement industry and insights, especially in B2B and pro marketing.
And I am Sargsyan. I'm the head of economic research at Houzz, which is software for pros and designers in construction and design industry who can do their job from start to finish. And today, over the next 20 minutes, we will be highlighting how generational trends, labor challenges, as well as shifting market conditions are potentially going to affect your business in the coming year. Let's jump in with a quick roadmap on what's ahead. And if the title or Brian didn't give it away, we are going to be breaking down 5 of the biggest trends we believe are to reshape our industry. We will tackle them one by one, covering everything from pent-up demand for remodeling to sustainability shifts and more. Of course, we're going to highlight some important data so you can use it at your next cocktail party. But most importantly, we'll end each trend with some quick and impactful actions for industry marketers and, of course, for designers and architects out there. Finally, we'll stay on the line after to answer any burning questions you might have. And with that, we'll roll right into our first trend.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to dive in with that. And of course, if you do have questions, don't feel like you need to hold them to the end. There is a chat there. Feel free to join that, ask some Q&A. We'll see if we have some time as we're going through to answer, and certainly we'll make sure to answer at the end. But let's kick off with trend number 1, the return of the remodel. Now, it's not just you if you're seeing it. Over the past couple of years, homeowners across the US have deferred important, even costly renovations. I'm sure you've heard about it from the folks that you know in your life, even. In fact, a lot of higher household income folks have been deferring those for a really significant period of time. And the reason for that, well, you probably guessed it, it's been interest rates, right? Well, in 2025, we're seeing at least some stabilization of interest rates. We know there's questions still, but at least in terms of consumer sentiment around that, it seems like there's a sense that there is some stabilization there. But on top of that, we're also seeing that housing stock isn't getting any younger. And so homeowners are more than ready after so many years of waiting to invest in these big ticket projects. In fact, the economist Eric Lynch over at NAHB actually said recently that US housing has aged in its overall, aggregate age of demand for about 2000, from about 2005 and about 10 years. So that means houses are on average 10 years older now than they were even in 2005. And that means there's a lot of updates that need to happen, even in terms of modern codes, lifestyle changes that need to be made. And even though remodels were down actually in 2024 by about 3.5%, NAHB is projecting that to jump to about 7% growth in 2025, and even more explosive growth, over 12% there in 2026.
That's absolutely right, Brian. And kind of to put it in perspective, the median age of a house in the US right now is 42 years old. And to kind of just reiterate the point, it is 10 years older than in the past decade. And, which is a clear sign that new construction starts have been down for some time now. And our research shows that this surge isn't limited to cosmetic changes, right? With the housing stock aging rapidly, need for maintenance and modernization is inevitable. That includes energy efficient upgrades, structural changes, as well as modern tech. What stands out is that for homes built before 2000, home system upgrades, such as plumbing, electrical, as well as heating, are the most common renovations after the interior room remodels. Homeowners often address these critical system upgrades with kitchen and bathroom remodels, ensuring that their homes remain functional and up to date. As homes become newer, the focus shifts outward, and homeowners increasingly invest in outdoor enhancements such as lighting, security, irrigation systems, and those are the ones taking priority for the homes built after 2000s.
Marianne, I know we both were at KBIS and IBS, and I think we saw so many of these spaces just ripe for renovation and ripe for innovation in that renovation as well. But the question is, of course, are retailers, are lenders as optimistic? It's one thing if there's just a trend towards projected renovation. It's a whole nother thing if there's a system to back it up. And at least in terms of what we're seeing in this first quarter, well, Home Depot's latest quarterly earnings call this past quarter, they're projecting a 2.8% sales increase in 2025. That's despite everything that's going on here in the first quarter. And they pointed actually specifically to that growth being driven largely by remodeling and also DIY spending. So that's already a pretty strong market signal there. But on top of that, we're actually seeing a lot of lenders, that's both traditional banks and also some fintech startups, that are ramping up their home equity line of credit products, their HELOC products, and their renovation-focused loans. So, ultimately they're looking at this and they're saying, we think homeowners want to finance bigger. They're probably going after more ambitious remodels, and we need to serve up some products that are like that. So, most of you, I'm assuming, are probably considering something like that yourself, or at least have someone in your family that is. I know even my family are considering making some of those upgrades right now.
And this is one of the reasons why Houzz has partnered with Figure to make it easier for homeowners to actually access their HELOCs. And right when they are exploring ideas and finding pros, which you do on Houzz. With just a few clicks, they can learn about financing and apply it directly through the Houzz platform. And for pros, what this means is that having trusted resource to help their clients understand their options and move forward with confidence. It's about turning inspiration into action faster and more seamlessly, I guess. And it's the perfect moment to position your brand or services for high value renovations, especially for this equity rich homeowners and looking into to kind of modernizing their spaces. You want a fun fact? Our research shows that more than half of homeowners who renovated in 2024 had accumulated 100% equity on their homes already.
Wow, that's so significant.
Now, let's, I guess, take a closer look at what motivates homeowners to take on these projects. A lot of them are huge investments into their homes. The most cited reason for homeowners are finally having the time and having the financial means to invest in home improvements, which is solidifying our conversation around pent-up demand. A quarter of homeowners are focused on customizing a recently purchased home, emphasizing the importance of personalization among today's client, and addressing damage due to home age remains a critical driver, which we already discussed in length as well. Finally, only a small share that we see on our research that are renovating with preparation for home sale.
It's so interesting that the sale isn't really driving the question right now, right?
Not anymore.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it actually turns out that this whole remodeling uptick, it's not unprecedented. In fact, there are industry analysts like Todd Tomilak at Zonda, and he's actually seeing parallels with the early 1980s. You think about it, there were high interest rates, they stifled that remodeling for several years, and that only turned into a bigger bounce back then for, those remodels once conditions started to stabilize. In fact, that rebound in the 80s actually reached a peak of about 20 to 25% in annual growth. So it's not actually crazy to assume that as soon as consumers and homeowners are feeling comfortable with the stabilization of rates, they're going to commit to their renovations, and they're going to commit in pretty big numbers.
And so the exact percentages, of course, might differ, right? But the theme for 2025 holds up. Once pent-up demand is unleashed, spending is going to follow quickly. And Home Depot's bullish outlook and expanded lending options, and it's a recipe for a real momentum going into the rest of 2025 and 2026. So if all the stars are aligning for the beginnings of renovation boom in 2025, what should home improvement marketers, designers, and other professionals be doing now to prepare?
Yeah.
So in the consumer marketing, and consider narrowing your focus on identifying homeowners with strong home equity. They have been waiting for years now, and they are ready for your message. Orient your messaging around the value of the investment and the ROI they might achieve through it. Don't forget to remind them about the new ways to finance. And finally, more than ever, time your ads and marketing content around peak indoor project seasons, particularly through Q2 or Q1 of 2026. Sorry, it's a decade late somehow. And for our designers and architects, the next wave of homeowners are digital natives who do expect seamless and tech-driven experiences. Therefore, embracing technology such as Houzz Pro is not optional, it's essential. So expect more calls for comprehensive overhauls, far beyond just surface level changes, and to prepare to discuss ways to future-proof the home. After all, our research shows that more homeowners than ever plan to stay put in their homes after remodels. That number is 11 years or longer. It's a long, long time after you remodel.
That is a long time. Again, that goes to your point, though, of not being tied necessarily to the home sale, but that long-term value and planning for it, which I think we haven't seen in a long time, especially, with that post-COVID initial home sale boom. So really interesting to see that now. It just shows we're poised to see that real growth in 25. And we're expecting to see that come through large-scale remodeling projects and to see that trickle really then continue even beyond that into 26. Well, let's move into trend number 2 here. So we're going to be talking all about sustainability and maybe even a little bit about how a selfish approach to sustainability could be your winning approach in 2025. Now, let me start with this. Younger generations, millennials and Gen Z, they're driving demand for eco-friendly products just in general. Think solar panels, LED lighting, heat pumps, energy efficient appliances. Really, the sky's the limit on that. But what we're also seeing is baby boomers are investing in energy efficiency too. And it kind of begs the question, generationally speaking, motivation-wise, why? Well, with baby boomers, at least, as they're looking to age in place, they're coming to terms with their fixed income that they're trying to set themselves up with success for the rest of their life. They want to do everything they can to lower their bills and really make sure that they are going to be okay in retirement, all the way down to even their energy bills and the things concerning their home.
That's also backed by house data too. During kitchen remodels, 90% of homeowners incorporate at least one sustainable option. Popular choices are LED lighting, efficient appliances, and dimmers. In fact, the long-term cost effectiveness is a big driver in addition to environmental and health reasons. And the theme also extends to bathroom remodels, where water efficiency is second only to energy efficiency. Motivations may differ by generation, of course, but the result is a consistent push in 2025 toward greener home solutions that are also cost effective. At the end of the day, regardless of motivation, it's just encouraging to see incentives and sustainable practices aligning seamlessly.
It really is nice to see how that's all working together. But of course, we kind of have to address the other side of this, which is that a lot of that investment up through 2025 has been underpinned by strong government support. So, for the past several years, the Inflation Reduction Act, that provided strong incentives. There were tax credits on things like heat pumps and solar installs. But there's definitely a reevaluation of funding priorities at the federal level right now. And as an industry, we need to make face with that strong potential for, reduced federal support for certain clean energy programs. And throughout 25, we expect that it's going to be a bit of a mixed bag at what lasts and what's pulled back.
On a more positive note, many states and local governments are still offering their own rebates, credits, and expediting permitting for green upgrades. So even if federal incentives shift in a way, there are a lot of alternative paths for homeowners and pros who want to go green. So the key is staying informed and guiding clients to whichever incentive remain available in their local market.
Regardless of incentives or government supports, it's 2025. And we need to remember, especially when we're talking about sustainability, that we have our sustainability minded consumers, and those are especially millennials and Gen Z, even on the older edge, who want data backed claims for all things that are sustainability related. It's not good enough anymore just to say a product's green or to say that it's environmentally friendly. In fact, a lot of the younger homeowners, and I use younger generously because a lot of us, even as millennials, are aging into our early 40s. We're pretty well educated and ready to ask about, things like your carbon footprint, your material sourcing. But even with all of those more altruistic, maybe questions in mind, there's still something that rises to the top, and it's that everybody, regardless of generation, wants to know what's in it for them when it comes to sustainable products.
Exactly, don't we all? And while messaging around saving the planet makes us feel good in abstract, it's not the core concern for most Americans in 2025. Don't be shy to go all out in providing third-party certifications, such as Energy Star, for example. That backs up your claim. Otherwise you're running into the risk of being labeled as greenwasher, a term I learned recently, and that damages the trust, and it's really hard to earn it back.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are we going to take away maybe from this idea of almost a sustainability that's selfish, or what we at Simon Myers call selfish sustainability for the rest of 2025? Well, here's the thing. If we're a marketer or we help manage brands in this space, we need to make sure that we're highlighting that tangible energy or cost savings and not just those planet saving stories. Like Marine said, those are nice to haves, but folks want to know what's in it for them when it comes to sustainability. And that's also going to include some accompanying health benefits too. Anything that we say, we need to back up with the kind of hard data to support it. And, when you're able, work with your leadership teams to develop maybe some alternate incentives in this environment in case the federal government changes the direction in terms of funding priorities. And of course, finally, make sure that you're maintaining transparency, I should say, and clarity with any and all sustainability claims. And for our designer and architect audiences that might be listening in, it's a great time to integrate energy saving features and materials. You saw from the Houzz data just how many folks are incorporating that type of material into their renovations. Advanced insulation, triple pane windows even. Your clients are more interested than ever in these kinds of solutions that are going to help them save money over time and make sure that they're living healthier lives in their long-term homes, the ones they're going to be in for 11 plus years at least. Don't sacrifice the bookwork though. And I know this is kind of the boring part or the tough part, but make sure you're staying up to speed with those local and state level rebates too. Incentives from your vendors, tax credits, all of those things. Ultimately, in this environment that we're in right now, you can really set yourself apart in your business by being that firm that helps your clients navigate those rocky roads of things like local rebates and fast track permits where no one else does.
Yeah, exactly. And just to echo what we said around this trend, solutions for what's in it for me, and plus proactive design strategies so show that you are providing a value. Okay, well, that was two down. Now, next, let's look at how labor shortages might hinder or even redirect our industry growth in 2025.
Well, maybe you heard, maybe you haven't, but in trend three, we're asking the question just out loud. Are we on the edge of an installer labor shortage cliff in 2025? Well, according to the NAHB, contractors and job sites, they're reporting about 13 out of 16 construction positions are already hard for them to staff. And while that's down from 16 of 16 positions just a couple of years ago, it still signals this sea of uncertainty. Couple on top of that, a remodeling demand set to rise, and there really aren't enough pros to keep up with the anticipated volume of demand we're going to see. So the result, at least according to places like Zonda, are that pros are increasingly going to have to do things like delay their bid acceptance. And even more than that, they're going to get a lot more control over which types of jobs they even choose to accept in the first place.
Brian, that's exactly what House's research shows. For the past decade, labor shortages have been top of mind, especially specialized trades such as electricians, plumbers, as well as carpenters are in particular short supply. And that increasingly drives up labor costs, lengthens timelines, as well as puts a lot of power in the pros' hands, who are now highly in demand.
Now, I think we've also seen the impact of that, Marine, in terms of the shifts that are affecting our industry, right? A lot of brands we're starting to see are focusing on making products that are easier to install. Your snap together flooring, your modular cabinetry. Think about it as the things that go quickly for a DIYer, but go even faster than that for the pros. Because ultimately, the more efficient that you can make, the install, or you can make the product, the more you're freeing up that time and those labor resources for higher ticket jobs. But it's also created a bit of a need that was, I don't want to call it invisible, but we'll call it invisible for the sake of it here, for even just a few years ago. And that was the need to invest in actually helping the pro succeed. And that's why we're starting to see a real influx now of brands that are doing everything from online tutorials to influencer demos, dedicated support lines, all of that specifically for their pro customers.
Right. And then it should be clear by now that all these efforts cut labor hours for pros and empower DIYers to handle their own and simpler tasks in 2025 if they choose so, right? So, and everyone benefits from this. And that's exactly how we think about our pro community, where platforms like Houzz Pro come in. They are helping professionals to streamline their communication, project management, as well as client collaboration in such a way that frees up their time to do something else.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's really interesting that we see that. But, one of the other factors that pros are facing right now is that it's not just the shortage of staff. It's actually the idea that a lot of small contractors are relying on short-term loans, and that's to help them front costs for their projects, right? Over these last few years, we know that those interest rates have dropped, or have risen, I should say, but they've risen even more dramatically than the mortgage market for construction loans. They've jumped from anywhere from 7 to 8% up to 13 to 14% right now on average. And some of those loans are actually all the way up to over 20%. And, if you're a small business, well, you know that just like you, pros are going to have a hard time making those numbers work when that cost of borrowing is so high. So they've got to choose their projects carefully. And you think about larger projects like new construction starts or even multifamily units, those are the ones that are really getting pushed off here in 2025.
Yeah, this one is tough. We are all facing price pressures. But if you can develop and market solutions that help pros manage their cash flow as efficiently as possible, you can win kind of loyalty that lasts. But for 2025, these factors further point to projects like remodels that do not require heavy financial risk for pro partners. So let's wrap up this one with a few quick tips for marketers. First, with an impending labor shortage, pros are only going to be more important than ever. And they will have as much veto power over a spec based on factors like installation time, lead times, and more. So anything you can do to support them in our pro programs and offerings, it will go a long way building pro loyalty. Also, make sure your pro customer service is dialed in. The more you can dedicate specific resources to pros instead of sending them through normal consumer channels, the more you'll see yourself apart. Second, consider creating a pro referral program. The more leads you help them generate, even in labor short market, the more they will consider you a true business partner. And last, explore financing program and other incentives. All can help ease their own financial burdens.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're hearing that all the time from our clients in particular there. Well, for designers and architects, there's also some implications here. You might want to consider how you specify materials that cut that installation time down and really allow pros to take on those projects that help them spread their resources across that range of opportunities that they have. And of course, don't forget that skilled pros are always looking to foster relationships with other dependable trade professionals like you. So the more you can connect with them, the more likely you're going to be to get business referred to you and to refer business to each other in 2025 and beyond. So the big story of this year, at least as we see it for the rest of the year, is when you make pros' lives easier, whether you're a brand or you're in the A&D community, they're going to be a lot more likely to choose you as well. Well, Getting close to our final trend here, but first, trend number four, the growth of online sales and digital tools in the home improvement industry. Last quarter, the Home Depot reported a 9% jump in digital sales, and that's both consumers and pros shifting their purchase to those digital channels. And of course, in 2025, none of us are strangers to online purchasing, right? But the benefits of that online shopping are becoming so much more clear for pros in particular. When you can save that time, when you can simplify the project logistics through shopping online, you're freeing up that time to be on that job site, to be taking care of more of the stuff that you need to take care of, and spending less time in the store. And that's really regardless of whether they're choosing things like buy online, pick up in store options, or even just having that product shipped directly to the job site.
Yeah, e-commerce isn't slowing down in 2025. That's not what we see in the data outside of house as well. When with the biggest retailers, and while DIYs have been the hot topic for online shopping for some time already, the pros are important not to neglect, even leading in categories like roofing, drywall, as well as power tools in the past quarter. So having an easy way to navigate and easy to use user experience is more critical than ever for brands looking to make deeper inroads with pros and DIYs. In line with this, House has now integrated Home Depot's product catalog directly into House Pro software. So professionals can easily add Home Depot products to estimate and then invoices as well as selection documents without ever leaving the platform. And it's a simple way to kind of save time, reduce error, as well as help pros run more efficiently and profitable jobs. So they're all pro-facing to make their lives easier.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it begs the question for everybody on the line, how's your brand doing here, right? In 2025, if your e-commerce or even just your brand and product sites, if they're lacking things like robust specs, if you don't necessarily have customer or client reviews on there yet, if you don't have easy to follow tutorials or even just simple, more technical resources and searchability, you might be losing out on some really key opportunities that your competitors are taking advantage of in getting smart with what the pro needs.
What I'm hearing here is it's all about just reducing the time it takes to get busy professionals the information they need and helping these pros more easily integrate their selections into their workflows from initial research all the way into the install.
Oh, absolutely. But what's interesting, Marne, in all of this is that more than any year before, that shift to these digital channels and home improvement, it's going beyond e-commerce and just simple banner sites, right? Earlier this month, Lowe's actually debuted Milo, and that's an all things home improvement AI advisor that's built actually using open AI, right? The same folks that make ChatGPT. So customers can scan products or type queries. Sure, they're going to get real-time DIY guidance through it. But that's only part of it. A lot more powerfully, Milo is going to be used to capture everything from things like project design inspiration to DIY tips on home repairs and even more localized recommendations based on user zip code. It's something we really haven't seen to this degree of personalization before.
Right. And this isn't a fleeting trend either. The example you brought in, and I know Lowe's has been saying that they are doubling down with emerging technology collaborations. They are solving problems for their customers, and it's all great messaging, right? And you see that on the ground, as Milo is one of many clear signs that home improvement retail in 2025 is moving toward personalized, tech-driven experience. And, in the design and architectural community, it's going to need rapidly adopt to these new capabilities. For instance, how might designer and architect harness AI for a quick, maybe 3D rendering or material calculations? And this is where a lot of the platforms come in, such as Milo and then House Pro, to kind of allow for this integration to seamlessly go into the workflow for the architects and designers and other pros. And these are all unavoidable questions that will only grow more important in 2020 as kind of we're moving forward into the 2025.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, we have to ask that question then. If all of these shifts are happening, what's that mean for us? Well, certainly as pros are adapting to these digital channels at a faster and faster rate, and that's in workflow and in their shopping habits, it's more important than ever that we recognize as brand leads, what our digital experiences are and how we can optimize it for pro audiences in 2025. It's something we're really concerned with at Simon Myers and helping our clients with in particular. A poor search or purchase experience, it could be a huge turnoff for the pro from your brand towards someone else who's doing it better. And of course, our industry is clearly not immune from that AI revolution either. And that means that we need to be delivering increasingly interactive and responsive tools, and both for the pro and for the DIY, and AI solutions that live on site for our users at all levels of expertise. And even in the time of like automated responses, we know those are only getting more personal because of AI. So we need to think about the ways as brands we can actually deliver unique and personal digital experiences.
Yeah, and for our designer community, if you have not already, it's kind of the time to do and explore this. AI can make your own processes faster and make it efficient. Why, you might ask? It because many of your vendors and likely even some of your competitors are working on ways to integrate this technology into their workflow so that they can deliver more value, as Brian mentioned already. I know we at Houzz have been doing that. And, because in 2025, the AI transformation is poised to start revolutionizing this industry in such different ways that maybe even Brian and I are not aware. But this is a shift that is a common theme, and going into 2026 and going beyond that will be the trajectory for it. Okay. And in such a short amount of time, we have already made it to our final trend to carry us through the rest of 2025. And that is the big trends we are all watching in design for 2025. And I'm
Well,
sure Brian will take it from here.
absolutely. Well, every homeowning generation, they're interested in these renovations for 25. I think we've made that pretty clear, and we're all feeling pretty good about that. But baby boomers and seniors, they're finally feeling like they have the time to prioritize those renovations. And that's a different motivation from someone like a millennial or a Gen X who are feeling like they have the financial means, or maybe even they bought a new place and they're just getting into it for the first time. And on top of that, what they're doing with those renovations is different, with baby boomers focusing on aging in place and universal design, where Gen X are balancing that family and work from home balance, and millennials are trying to focus on that sustainability, technology, maybe younger family stages that they're at. Each group just has these very distinct triggers, but it's all leading to some really interesting shifts and some design trends for 25.
Yeah, that's exactly right. According to our latest house bathroom study, universal design features are a significant consideration for baby boomers and the generations preparing to age in place. Features like curbless showers and non-slip floors are priorities for this population who wants to remain independent for as long as possible. Our data also shows that over 60% of recent bathroom remodels are being done to accommodate for some sort of special need. And kitchens are not immune to this type of trends, with more than half of renovating homeowners thinking of special needs as they are upgrading their kitchens. And most popular amongst them are features like pull-out cabinets, more lighting, as well as wider drawer pulls. But House's 2025 design trends are not limited to universal design and aging in place, right? Styles like organic, modern, and Japanese influences are rising fast in popularity, blending this minimalism and natural elements. Especially younger homeowners want this calming and wellness-oriented spaces that feel as connected to nature as they are serene to live in.
Well, speaking of wellness there, we've come so far since 2020 and how we define wellness features even in the home, right? 2023, 2024 alone, we're seeing significant growth in the popularity of what we consider to be maybe more structural wellness elements, things like cold plunges, indoor and backyard saunas, large windows like you see there, and home spas even. So if maybe that early post 2020 wellness focus was on maybe those small luxuries and little adaptations that allowed homeowners to relax, in 2025, the scale's going to be pretty ambitious, and there's going to just be a lot more room required and a lot more investment with these renovations. And we absolutely expect that trend to just continue picking up steam as more of these home renovations are completed. Well, we're here at the end here. We're going to round out our top five trends reshaping 2025. And we want to think about how marketers are going to speak to each generation's motivators and their concerns, right? Baby boomers with security when they age, millennials with sustainability, technology, growing families. There's just so much for us to focus on. No two renovations are created equal, and they're not entered into with the same desire. We need to think about the more personal our messages get and the more likely we're going to be to meet that homeowner at that exact right moment with the message that matches their need. And of course, with these new and expanding features and even things like hallmarks of wellness and personal style, we've got a lot more options than ever in our toolbox to focus on what matters most that are going to make those trends in 2025. We need to focus ultimately, though, no matter what it is we're doing, on that long-term value for homeowners who are investing in these renovations, right? If they're going to be in those homes for 11 years or longer, they're going to want to know how that's going to pay off in the end for them. So whether it's aging in place or a growing family that's motivating it, homeowners want to know that their decisions that they're going to make in 2025 with their renovations to invest in are actually going to pay off in the long term for them.
And just to kind of add to what you said, Brian, for our A&D community, know that your expertise will shape the ability how your client ends up enjoying their space safely for the years to come. But you will likely need to lead that discussion with your client. So make sure that you are up to speed with the latest aging in place trends or whatever it is that comes to your way, right? Don't be afraid to lead that conversation for your client. And as always, you can count on Houzz to keep you educated on all the latest trends emerging in our ever-shifting industry.
Well, that was a rapid fire chat, wasn't it, though, for lunchtime,
That was
Marne?
amazing for me.
Yeah, well, I really want to thank everybody for sticking with us here. I know we're just a couple minutes over time, but if you're interested in learning more ways that Simon Myers are helping marketers and brand leaders right now navigate those B2B needs of pro audience outreach specifically, feel free to reach out to me directly following that webinar or via our website at simon-myers.com. And Marne, thank you so much for joining me as my co-host today. As ever, Houzz is an incredible partner and a true leader in all things home improvement trends. We're going to go ahead and stay on the line for the next couple minutes here. Just answer any questions you might have. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A. You're free to drop, though, if you need to get on to your next thing in your day. But just once again, we want to thank you so much for attending our webinar. And we hope that these trends reshaping 2025 are also going to help reshape how you do your planning into the back half of 2025 and even as you're looking to start your 2026. So once again, thank you so much for sticking with us here. We'll stay on the line for questions, but thank you for attending our webinar. And any questions for us here? We'll give a second just as we see our Q&A panel here. Anything that stuck out to you, Marne, in particular as we were going through this that surprised you or that you were maybe kind of more interested to dive deeper into?
I think the sustainability piece was really interesting. I always see in our data that there has to be an incentive aligned with it. And recently I was at a panel discussing how there are huge differences between US and Europe when it comes to sustainability, and then those incentives that need to be there in terms of the messaging from the brands to kind of capture homeowners. Yes, you want to say that they are sustainable and green, but you also want to bring in that second piece, which is what's in it for me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's so interesting that the what's in it for me plays so significantly into the American market in particular. And I know we've seen that backed up by other research at Simon Myers that we've done, especially amongst luxury consumers and those considering aging in place. A lot of really interesting push there towards wanting the sustainability, but needing to know that it's going to pay off for them at the end of the day, no matter how good it is for anybody else. Well, I'm going to go ahead and just say last call for questions here. I don't see anything coming through on our Q&A yet. So if you haven't, this is a last ditch chance to get your question into our chat. I'll give everyone just a couple more seconds here. But Marne, thanks again for being on the line with me today. It's always fun to be able to chat with you here and have these kinds of conversations and partner with Houzz.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. It's a true pleasure to go over this research, but then also have another partner to talk about it and going forward.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. And we hope you all have a great rest of your Wednesday here and a great Q2 as you make your way through 2025. And we'll be in touch later. Thanks so much.